Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, a little review series we are starting up where the whole point is to review games based on the store page. And since it is January, it's a brand new year, we're doing it this month for new games only. I am Curtis. I'm with NeoFanks Gaming, and I am here with FlamedEzra. I'll have links in the description on the YouTube video for anybody that wants to check out his content, his socials. So, FlamedEzra, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. So
Yeah.
the game we picked out for today is Ys Memoire: The Oath in Felghana for Nintendo Switch. It's coming out on January 7th. Um, I gave it a very brief look. That it's apparently a remaster of the 1989 Ys 3 Wanderers from Ys, and I hope to God I'm pronouncing that right. But
Yeah.
yeah, this it looks like action RPG stuff going on. Now, mind you, I have never played this game. The judgments for this is going to be based solely on what they present in the store page. So, if any of you get upset over what I am basing my judgment on, that is completely fair.
A little biases never really hurt anyone, right?
Exactly. So it's telling us here the classic Ys title returns remastered for Nintendo Switch, originally conceived as a reimagining of the 16-bit console classic Ys 3 Wanderers from Ys. This fan favorite entry returns, newly remastered as Ys Memoire: The Oath in Felghana. Right there, it does strike me as a little interesting. They gave it that extra name on there, but I have seen games do that where a re-release or remaster of something a will have that extra name on there. Like I know the Etrian Odyssey series had remakes for the first few called Etrian Odyssey Untold, where they added content to it. So that's pretty cool that it's a little bit of a name change, but it tells to the remaster of it so that it probably feels enough like a new game.
Yeah, it's probably to differentiate between the fact that, like you said, it's a remake or remaster, but it
Exactly.
also read further, it probably has new features or something. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Since the original was 1989, I'm pretty sure that they some of the stuff I saw in the trailer. Anybody that does want to see the trailer, check it out when you get the chance. It does show some nice visuals. Um, and it tells us nearly 15 years after the previous release, longtime fans look forward to numerous improvements and upgrades, including all new voiceover for the legendary protagonist Adol Kristen, with remastered high definition visuals and music. So that's good. They go and update the visuals, update the sound, because I don't think PCs from 1989 are going to have the best aged stuff.
yeah.
Let's see. The epic adventure has never looked or sounded better. Additional features are including multiple versions of the soundtrack, accessibility options, brand new character illustrations, making the Ys Memoir the definitive edition of the acclaimed masterpiece. It goes on saying the classic RPG excitement remastered experience old school action RPG combat as the Ys series is known for, with added difficulty options and the quality of life enhancements like turbo mode, where you fight your way through a memorable fantasy world. Now, it doesn't describe the turbo mode here, but I did see in the trailer that it looked like it was basically it lets you play the game at double speed or something to that effect. Which so I know some older games can be a little slow paced, so the fact that they have something to kind of speed things along can probably help get through some of the grindier bits.
Yeah, I was gonna say that reminds me of like the OG Pokemon games compared to like even newer gen or some slightly older newer
Right.
gen.
Like if
The
anybody goes
difference
and
in
plays
specs.
Pokemon Red and Blue and is trying to go through the Surfer Hydro Pump animations, oh my gosh, it takes so damn
Well,
long.
not even just the animations, but just how slow the text was back then.
Yeah. Which is kind of weird that they had.
To like Gen 2, but like
I mean, they did have the options to speed up the text speed, but it's still. Or even like the Gen 4 games were famous for some of the things just running slowly, like the HP bars.
yes, that's true.
Yeah, Blissey HP bars were a nightmare. So the turbo mode definitely a welcome addition here. Refined visual variety. It says it features all new refined character illustrations throughout the game, but players who want the original experience can switch to the classic versions at a whim. So that's cool. So if you want new visuals, you got it. If you want the classic, you can stick with that.
I think that's a good welcoming to both new players and experienced players.
Right.
So like
People who want
it
that
says,
nostalgia.
yeah, it says it's critically acclaimed, so like clearly there's, some sort of fan base for this game out there. So I'm sure that people who played it back when it came out, if they're still playing games at this point,
Right.
will enjoy that.
And let's see. Oh, it says a silent protagonist no longer. A newly recorded voice acting for adult Kristen, including opening narration that sets the stage for adventure, gives new depth and gravity to the famous hero. For this, I could see this being a mixed bag. A lot of times, old games had a silent protagonist, so that I think a lot of times the intent was for the player to imprint themselves onto the protagonist, as opposed to the protagonist having their own personality, so that the player would feel more like they are in the world. But at the same time, I have played games where the protagonist had an entire like developed personality. They had their own lines, their own dialogue, their own voices, and those also add a lot of weight to the character, where you get to experience the character as the game developers intended, as opposed to necessarily imposing your own will on them. And but I could see both having like positives and negatives.
I I see, considering it's presenting itself as an action RPG, I feel like it would be not. I feel like it being a silent protagonist was kind of part of the main point, is to you're taking yourself and putting yourself in this role. So I can see it can still be a mixed bag though, because if you don't have a full um, presentation of what this character is, then it'd be kind of hard to put yourself in the shoes of your character.
Right.
But a silent protagonist also can have its perks. So yeah, I agree it'd be a mixed bag from the fact that it's an RPG.
Right. Like I know in Legend of Zelda, Link being a silent protagonist, the whole point of that is for the player to be immersed in the world so that they feel like they are Link. Same with like I guess the first Final Fantasy game, or the early Dragon Quest games would have been like that, as opposed
Yeah.
to like Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, where all those character, like every protagonist character in there has their own dialogue, their own speech, so that like they have a personality of their own. And both formats have been incredibly famed in classic gaming. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, mixed bag. It could be good, could be bad. That might be a thing that might be a little contention for longtime fans, being like, no, now I don't feel the character doesn't feel the way I pictured them in my mind when I played the classic.
Very true. Very true.
But of course, newer players might still prefer, especially when they add voice acting, like actual voiced roles to the mix.
Yeah.
And of course, they're boasting the sweeping soundtrack again. This version features 3 different iterations of the epic score. So the original PC 8801 and X 68,000. Wow, those are certainly numbers for how they. I mean, I pulled the wiki page of Ys 3 here just to see like the original release was in July 1989, and yeah, original platforms was like those early PC, like even before TurboGrafx systems.
Oh wow.
And yeah, English, supported play modes, basically any of Switch's play modes, one player, pro controller works, all the classic stuff. And we do have a handful of screenshots too. We get title cover. We do have one trailer on the Nintendo eShop page. The trailer it does look nice. I will say that it doesn't necessarily look like massive AAA games, but it does show a snippet of the gameplay. It shows some fights, some a little bit of platforming, and a little bit of character dialogue moments. So it's worth a look. Screenshots of the actual combat, and
Yeah.
this kind of reminds me of so my background with the series as a whole. I have
Oop. I think
played.
Discord cut out.
Oh,
Oh, that's
you good?
my end. That was my end, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I think I just had a quick like internet went buggy for a second, so
Oh, weird.
technical difficulties, but I'm okay.
Oh, that's fun. But my personal history with the series as a whole, I have played a grand total of less than one Ys game. So I don't think I finished it, but I think it was a port of the first Ys game that I got for sale on Steam, and it, of course, it had like the older graphics, older kind of gameplay. Um, Other than that, my only other exposure to the series was I think the YouTuber Pro Jared did a review of Hydlide where he talks about the battle mechanics of the game, or rather lack thereof, and then compared it to Ys, where so like when in his critique of Hydlide, his main issue was that combat was you just walk into enemies, and whoever has bigger numbers does damage to either enemy or player. But Hydlide didn't really have battle animations when you walk into enemies, but Ys had the same kind of, you attack by just walking into enemies, but it still shows an attack animation when you do that. So I do have a little vague recollection of that from playing that one Ys game way back when. But it looks like the combat might be a little more robust in here. I'm seeing like it looks like equipment slots on the character user interface.
Yeah. I also like that it looks pretty straightforward and like it doesn't look like it's a whole lot of HUD,
Right.
like
Like
a lot of distraction.
clearly HP meter, your equipment, the number that's either your hit points. Actually, yeah, that's probably hit points since it's 100 out of 100 on a full meter. And then that other bar is probably a skill meter, where I'm guessing it might fill up over time. It looks like it's designed to do something like that. Like,
And maybe a stamina bar too.
yeah, a stamina bar where you do like higher level actions the more stamina bar you have filled up when you go to move into an enemy.
Well, I also want to say based on the trailer, it showed like some sort of like something through the spin attack through the air kind of thing before
Right.
entering
There
combat.
were like
So,
some
like
aerial
stamina.
attacks in the trailer.
Yeah,
So it'd
or
be
something
interesting to
along
see
those
how
lines.
that plays out. And of course, people who have played the series or played the original probably have a better idea of what that is. So it looks like there's enough to the combat to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, we have some character dialogue moments. It is an action RPG, and it definitely has that JRPG aesthetic, where it's going to be very story driven. Probably go to the correct location and to trigger the next story flag.
Yeah.
We do have a
See,
screenshot of one of the fights. It looks like some of the fights and some of the scenes go in a bit of a side scroller platforming. It looks like, but it it looks it looks structured. Like you can tell what's going on.
yeah, I agree. And it also looks relatively welcoming to someone who hasn't really played many RPGs or JRPGs, or at least an RPG of this style. This looks very welcoming to someone like me. It's not, like I said, it's not a whole lot going on based on the few screenshots, but like just enough where it keeps you intrigued, but isn't overwhelming.
Exactly. Like
Uh,
you get an idea of the gameplay, and that's something I do like, that they actually show gameplay in the trailer and the screenshots. Looks like we have dungeon traversing in one of the screenshots. We have some skewers piling up through the ground. And now, if anybody has played any kind of dungeon-based RPG, they can pretty much tell what's going on here. You got a laser trap and spikes, so that if you're standing on top of the spikes when they shoot up, you're going to take damage. That's
yeah,
very common in games of this caliber.
yeah.
So you definitely have
Uh,
like dungeon traps and navigation to work through. And then
yeah,
the last screenshot shows character moments. I'm guessing this is probably another main character
yeah. I was just about to
that
get the
you encounter.
characters too. I was just saying, going back to the gameplay that we saw, it also just looks like, based on the small little evidence of the screenshot with Chester and the small bit of what we saw in the trailer,
Right.
I would assume Chester is the main antagonist.
Um,
Um,
I could see him based on the art and everything. I could see him being one like an antagonist, or maybe some noble that moves the story along or something.
yeah,
Um,
maybe something along that lines too.
like his line here as an adventurer, I know you may be tempted. I'd advise you not to get involved in our politics. I could see that like plot wise play out in a good way or a bad way. Like maybe he's a cautious noble that doesn't want outsiders getting in the way of something they have planned, which could be a law enforcement kind of thing. Like, hey, we know that there's a situation going on, but we can't have you interfering with our investigation. Or it could be a don't get involved in our politics because mwahaha, I am evil. His pretty boy look could definitely lean either way, because I've seen plenty of anime style protagonists that have both leanings.
Yeah, that's fair. But
Um,
the reason that also came to mind that he might be the antagonist is just based on one of the scenes in the trailer too. I mean, it might be a different character. I might just be misremembering, but I could have swore this character is when it like kicks him off the one of the cliffs in one of the dungeons. If that makes
right,
sense, like one of the edges of the map. Which again might just be a story moving point. It might just be like that might be early on in the game, and it might just be him doing something to try and like move along the plot. But
right.
so
Yeah, that's what we have here for ease as far as how the page looks. Um, I think it's interesting.
yeah,
I don't know if I would drop $30 on something that is like a remake or remaster of an old game. Although $30 is a much more welcome price tag than what I've seen in some games. Like I think when Link's Awakening came out with that Switch remaster, they priced that
yeah.
one at $60, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $60 for what essentially looks like a reskinned Game Boy game. Like when I saw the trailers for that one, it did not look like it looked different because they basically restructured all the graphics, but the gameplay looked almost identical to the original Game Boy, like Game Boy Color game. And I'm like, I'm not paying $60 for that when I could go on like a DS eShop and, well, not anymore, but when I could have gone on DS eShop and been like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pay $10 for that instead for the same game, because with that kind of a thing, yes, the new graphics look pretty and it did have like some extra features, whereas this one it's half that price. It's $30 instead of 60. They do tell you that they basically redid all the music, all the graphics. I imagine the gameplay probably has some additions to it. For somebody who may have played the original, might have a better idea of how one to one it is as a remake, or if there's like extra spin-offs or something going off here. But it's a much more welcome price tag than some things I have seen, and the gameplay, like, it does look like it offers enough for fans of the series to go for that $30. If I was gonna jump on something like this, I'd probably wait for it to go on sale. That's just my personal take. But
I
30, yeah,
So I was gonna say I mostly agree with that because again I'm not one who's been a fan of this series, but speaking from the point of view with like seeing a game revitalized that I was a fan of, got me very excited, which would be the My Sims that recently re-released, and I will say I hopped on that price very fast, and that was $40. But I
right.
was also getting two games for the
Right.
price of
That was $40 for a bundle of
yeah.
multiple games, which is also a very fair way to structure those kinds of remasters, re-releases on newer platforms.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't come with any like new content or DLC. It's pretty much the same game, but ported over with slightly better graphics and loading times, which
Right.
was nice. But for me, it was also the fact that I had mobility for a game that originally was on the Wii. So
Right.
being able to play it on the go was nice. So there's also that to consider that we're looking at the Switch game, so I don't know if it's releasing on other platforms or not. But for those who probably played it on a PC back in the day, getting it for $30 for mobility would probably not be something to easily pass up.
Definitely, I could see that being a huge selling point too. Now, I'm sure there's other platforms that are getting this too, but at least on the Switch, since I mean that just happens to be what I work with here,
Yeah,
for the most part. Being able to pick it up and on the go with you, you can play it like on your break at work, or heck, if you're a student in school and it's like, oh, put in a few minutes in lunch to get to that next boss fight or something, or farm a little experience.
yeah.
A good way to just kind of enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's definitely a lot of things to consider, but uh, I definitely would agree. I would probably be the type of person who would get it more when it's on sale, even if it's only like $10 off or $5 off. I would probably snag it when it's on a cheaper price than $30 personally.
yeah,
So
but yeah, that's what I like here. It is cool to see an old game like this. Now it's an old game, but it is a new release coming out, which is why new game month that we got here.
yeah,
So hopefully something like this does well where it's at, so that like I imagine fans of the series probably would look forward to other games. Um, I'm sure there's more than 3 games in this series. Uh, if this came out in 1989, heck, there's got to be a slew of others. Whether because a lot of times games like this would have probably released in Japan first, and then some of them come over. Some of them might have never gotten localized. But then, as things like this come out and show that, hey, people in the global market do like this, it might push them to go and develop and localize other games that might have never seen international releases.
yeah. Especially with what they were claiming, like saying it's such a big step for the series or whatever they said. I'm sorry, they might have said
Right.
it was like a critically acclaimed,
Critically
and that
acclaimed, a
previous
fan
fans.
favorite from the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, fan favorite was the term I was looking for. So like, there must be a slew of other games because whether they were seen Western release or not, I don't know. But if there's a big enough following for them to remaster the third game in the series that is over 30 years old, then I can definitely see the possibility of more releases if this does well.
Yeah, and if it
So
does, I would hope that now maybe they already did. I'd have to look into it. But that if this is a remake of the third, I would hope that either they already have or are planning on doing the first 2 games as well. I know it may sound a little backwards if the other ones haven't come out yet, or if they're holding off on that development just to see how this one does. But depending on how the series is structured and plays out, they could do something like they did with the Dragon Warrior 3 HD 2D remake, where that one just recently came out, but then we're still waiting on 1 and 2 to get their HD remake.
yeah,
So
it might also be just like the fact that like this is either the most popular in the series or it might also be the type of game where you can just jump in without needing any background knowledge of the series
right,
too.
that would be
Yeah.
another factor. Since this is the third, how much like does it play out like a Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy, where there might be references and nods to other games in the franchise, but each one can still very much stand on its own? Or is it the kind of thing where you pick up the third one, but the main character, if they share the main character and he's supposed to have some kind of continuing storyline, like Mega Man Battle Network, for example, where each game can be played on its own, but they do kind of build off of each other.
Yeah.
Overall, based on this, yeah, I'd say this probably a worthwhile eShop look. Of course, that remains to be seen. I may look into seeing like if there's um, other trailers. I only looked at what was on the eShop page here. Like I said before, I would wait for a discount if I were to go and try this out, just because budget and time. Everybody does have their schedule and constraints. But I would think for longtime fans, they're probably already jumping on this or have gone to pre-purchase it already. For people who might be on the fence, I might wait for a 50% off if I notice it. If I don't notice it, then I don't see it. But we'll see how that plays out in the future.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts from Ezra?
Uh, Again, based on what I'm seeing, it looks very welcoming to someone who hasn't really played this type of game before, or at least not frequents the
Right.
RPG series. Um, but I mean, again, I think we've covered everything we really needed to. So
Yeah. I would be interested. Like the sound, from the trailer, the soundtrack did have some a little bit of attention grabbing tunes to it, so that might be something else that'd be cool to look at. I do like game soundtracks, so I
that's
might
fair.
even just have to add that to my playlist. for work
Yeah.
and all that.
I will say, yeah, the soundtrack based on the trailer does sound really good. So
Yeah. Definitely grabs you. They seem to set the tone for the moment at the very least. Which when you have music going with your game, you definitely want it to set that tone.
yeah, especially for a trailer that's only about a minute long, they have a lot of tension to grab in this day and age. So they did very well with that.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I'd say now people out there in YouTube or in listening to podcasts, don't get mad at me. E's Memoire, The Oath in Felghana. I'm gonna say my rating of the store page at a 6. I'll call it a 6 out of 10. Now, mind, I know a lot of game ratings are probably like, oh, anything below a 7 is garbage. But it's like, I'm going to say, you know what? Probably a 6 out of 10 based on the store page. Again, this is based solely on what we see presented in the store page. Looks like it looks like a good product. I would need a little extra push if I were to go and purchase this myself. But of course, other people, depending on your budget, your time, your history with the franchise, by all means, this looks like something that the developers put care into. So your rating is going to be wildly different from my own, uh, based on exposure alone.
Yeah. I
And
would probably also just based on what I'm seeing, you're rated about a 6 out of 10 as well, which again, maybe even a 7 because of just how much it like the trailer did very well with it grabbing my attention and making me want to feel like I could play it. So
yeah,
yeah.
and this actually, one last thought. This kind of game, it's probably also if the controls are anything like I remember from that other Ease game those years ago that I had tried. If it's anything like that, it's probably very easy to grasp for people to get into. So people who aren't as experienced with games that might have complicated stat systems and equipment builds to figure out, like, okay, how do I min max my character to beat this boss or to make the game a little easier. This one's more of a get in, smack some monsters, and enjoy the story. It's probably going to be a little more like entry level friendly for people that might not be as experienced in games.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, my only big complaint about the series in general is the name Ease.
Yeah.
Like, now I know it does have that whole extra title to it, E's Memoire, The Oath in Felghana. That you put that in a Google search, you know what's going to come up at the top result. But if you were to Google just E's, let's see, YS. If I just type YS, okay, the game does come up, so it does have enough popularity where it shows up at the top of Google search results. But if you were to say it to somebody, like in verbal conversation, it's going to be like, oh yeah, have you tried that new Ease game? Somebody going to look at you like, that what? Can you spell that, please? YS. And it's like, huh? Which
Yeah.
it's not as bad as another game I saw in the eShop where the game title was just the letter S. Like, put that into a search engine and see what comes up. The letter S. Nothing. The search results have no consensus, no idea what you're trying to look for. The search results have no idea that you're talking about a game. So
Yeah.
at the very least, Ease does have that brand recognition and that historical notoriety that has built it so that it can get in there. But imagine if it did come out for the first release today, that would be an incredibly hard thing to search for.
Yeah.
But that's probably my only big complaint about it.
Yeah. Definitely true. Because I honestly thought it was called Wise or Weiss, but
That would be my thought too. The only reason I am calling it Ease is because I saw a YouTube video where somebody was reviewing another game and they mentioned this series and that's what they called it. Otherwise, I would have no other basis for how to pronounce this.
yeah,
In fact,
I don't know.
if I am pronouncing it wrong, in those comments, like, by all means call me out in those comments for pronouncing it wrong throughout this entire review.
Yeah, he's the one who misled me if it is wrong.
Yeah, if Ezra's getting it wrong, then that's my fault. 100% my fault.
Alrighty.
But once again, thank you for joining us, Ezra. This has been a delight. Anybody
Yeah,
else
thanks
out
for
there
having
who
me.
does have exposure to the E series, by all means, let us know your thoughts too. And for other suggestions that you'd like to see in judging by the cover, I do want to do this every week. Have something new to look at for you guys. This month we're going to be looking at new games that are releasing close to our upload date. So thank you for joining us. Anything else, Ezra, as we sign out?
Nah, just happy New Year and hope everyone's staying safe.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year. Stay safe out there. It's 3 days into the new year and it's already been insane. So out there, everybody, anywhere in the world where you happen to be at, please stay safe.
Yeah, when we're having snowstorm coming in, that's fun.
Ooh, why? Oh yeah, we got a cold front coming in down here too.
Yeah.